he's looking at some options of what might be able to be done in cooperation with Caltrans at that intersection. And then we're scheduled to meet next week with the Director of Public Works from San Mateo County, since the other side of the intersection is outside of Atherton. So if we can get cooperation from the county to make a change, then we would be bringing that back to the committee and to council. But at this point, no traffic signal is proposed. As far as the hybrid beacon, that was, there is funding in the capital budget, but you may remember the presentation by Caltrans. They are proceeding with 2 hybrid beacons, one at Isabella in El Camino Real and one in Alejandra at El Camino Real. So,
so for people who may be wondering what hybrid beacons are.
thank you. I forget sometimes I'm an engineer. My wife reminds me. These are pedestrian actuated traffic signals, but they rest on green. So traffic can flow on El Camino as it does, but if a pedestrian wants to cross, they press a button and it activates a special traffic signal that stops traffic on El Camino Real, and so that the pedestrians can cross hopefully more safely. And we're working with Caltrans. That's the good news. Caltrans is going to be paying for it. However, if you think Atherton moves slowly, you haven't worked with Caltrans very much.
I'm curious, would the signal normally be green except when someone presses the button?
Yes, it would rest on green.
And why is it called a hybrid beacon?
It's called a hybrid because it has both a red light and yellow flashing lights. So sometimes we use just yellow flashing lights to alert, like on Alameda de los Pulgas. There's a flashing light to kind of heighten your sensitivity, hey, there's something up ahead. So this uses the combination of the two to both advise people that there's an issue there and that the light might turn red. And then when it does turn red, hopefully everybody knows that means stop.
And what do they cost?
They're about $150,000, which is
For an
about
intersection?
about a quarter of the cost of the signal, typically.
Why is it cheaper?
I
mean, isn't it a signal?
It's one pole and one light. It's not 4 poles, essentially, at all 4 intersections.
They don't have to have sensors in the road or cameras.
No.
So, I mean, I'm just curious, is it the case that drivers see the signal sufficiently well that they actually do stop?
Yes. Yes. It has been in use in other states. It was only recently adopted, I'd say, within the last 4 to 6 months by Caltrans as an accepted traffic control device.
There's actually an arm that extends out over the road with the light on it. So
As it would with a traffic signal.
yeah, it looks like a red light. So a lot of people stop for red lights.
I'm just surprised that it's so much cheaper yet similarly effective. And
Well, remember, the traffic signal, as I said, like a stop sign is used to regulate the flow of right-of-way, as we were talking earlier. And one platoon goes, the other stops. This allows the traffic to flow on the major street at all times. It's not regulating the flow of traffic on the side streets at all. It only regulates the flow on the main streets, and then only when actuated by a pedestrian.
Right, but I don't see how that saves that much money. It saves 75% of the cost.
One pole, 4 poles,
Plus
plus all the ancillary
cabinets with
hardware,
all the
cabinets,
electronics and
sensors,
communication.
electronics, etc.
I mean, it would just seem to me that most traffic signals ought to be put on the one pole.
No, they're one pole at each of the 4 corners here. So you have, you have 4 poles, and those poles are very expensive. They're all custom made. Okay. Third item is Middlefield at Linden, and I do have a report that was done.
This is primarily the bicycle.
The bicycle
concern.
path, and I have one standing, since you brought the issue up.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. We had one of our traffic engineers come down and look at that, and I know my colleague, the chief, wants to discuss this as well, but, Well, first, let me step back. We recently, you may remember, you had the bicycle and pedestrian master plan come before you, which has also gone to council. They have accepted it. Yeah, in terms of process, they've accepted it, but they cannot approve it because the California Environmental Quality Act says there will be projects involved with it, so it's gonna have to go through a CEQA review. That process is ensuing. But in terms of the there is a project on Middlefield recommended by the consultant to widen Middlefield and install bike lanes. That's not happening immediately. In fact, in terms of budget, it could be 4, 5, 6 years, depending on council activity. But in the interim, we know that there are bicyclists that use Middlefield Road, some of whom travel against the flow of traffic, which is not recommended. However, the traffic engineer didn't put blinders on, you saw that. His recommendation is that you put bike stop signs, so they're 18-inch signs, not the typical 30 or 36, and you stop the bicycle traffic at the crossings where they're blind, blind for the driver coming out of the gates, and that the bicycles walk the bike through the intersection. And you can even put up a placard below, 18-inch stop sign, and a placard below saying, walk bikes through intersection. That's the recommendation as an interim at this point. The second part of that, which was there was a parking issue, and that has been implemented just by a change in some of the parking signs. So that, I think perhaps the police department wants to comment on that as well.
So, can I also ask, at that discussion, I had suggested that there be a road sensor on Linden to make some kind of flashing light for those oncoming bikes, some kind of, basically a warning about the car about to emerge. Does something like that exist?
Well, it does. They often use them for the exits of parking garages. I was not the one that did this traffic study. It was done by another engineer. I don't know if that's something that he considered. It wasn't, I must admit, it was not something, I didn't know he was coming down to do this. So it wasn't an issue that I passed on to him. I can communicate with him tomorrow, since he was down here and observed, and ask whether that's something that he would recommend in addition.
Yeah, because extrapolating to the rest of humanity based on the behavior of my own children, they are not likely, no, the bikers are not likely to stop and walk their bikes. So, but if there's something that could actually warn them when there's actual danger, that's something that might pay attention to.
Can I have a comment?
Sure.
What I gave you earlier in the meeting is actually a video, or several video clips, Wednesday through Friday, and it illustrates that more than half, I'd say maybe 3/4 of the kids going through that crosswalk are on their bikes, riding. They're not walking.
Right.
And there was even an adult commuter, I have to assume he was a commuter because all 3 days he was going from the Glenwood side across Middlefield and at one, to get into Lindenwood. And he was, wearing a yellow jacket and everything, but at one point he actually had to go south and make a U-turn in the middle of Middlefield to come north because, the traffic going north and south was so fast that it's the only way he could actually make it across that intersection. So I think your suggestion for the lights, and I'm thinking it's on the crosswalk, is that right? Or are you saying it's
What I was
across?
suggesting is this, so the main problem that you illustrated was southbound bikers on the wrong side of the street.
Right.
At that, and so the idea is some kind of, Gordon suggested that the stop sign for bikers, well, in addition to the stop sign, there could be a flasher
Like a
that
flashing
flashes
light.
when a car is coming out at that location.
Right, yeah, that would be good. Would ever, any of these hybrid beacons be a possibility
They're very expensive.
in the future?
But that solves a different problem.
Yeah.
It's.
I mean, I sympathize with you of not being able to get kids to follow rules, but on the other hand, it's against, what they're doing is breaking the law. It's against the law for them to ride in the bike lane going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem to me to be too hard a concept to get across to a kid. Now, they have an alternative of riding their bikes in the wrong direction on the path that's between the trees and the wall,
Yeah.
which is a lot safer. But when they get to the Linden Gate, having stop signs there might remind them that they should walk their bikes across.
I think the signs are really gonna help a lot. I just this past week, I met 2 mothers riding, because now it's warmer weather and there's more kids and parents out again riding. And she wasn't aware, or either one of them weren't aware that it's against the law to ride your bike in the crosswalks.
I wasn't until
I
the
wasn't
last
either,
meeting.
you know, and I think the problem, one of the root causes is that kids are allowed to get a bike, they don't have to take any kind of training or pass any tests, and their parents, same thing, so they grow up with this, you know, their habits.
So I might clarify, having done some web research, and our officers can maybe straighten out on this, but
Good job, Jack.
it looks like that the state kind of leaves it up to the local municipality about the rules of riding a bike in a cross lane, in a crosswalk. But if you're riding your bike, you give up your right to be a pedestrian. You're not a pedestrian. So if you're violating right-of-way and stuff and are in an accident, it's the bicyclist's fault. If they're walking their bike in a crosswalk, they're a pedestrian. Now, local municipalities can pass their own regulations and say it's not legal. They can have an ordinance against it. But I couldn't find any place where Atherton had any
No.
position on this.
Mhm.
So, but
But ultimately, we're not going to train all the people to follow the law. And while it may, if an accident occurs, it may be their fault, or we have to sort of deal with the reality as it is and try to figure out how to minimize the probability of an accident to people who are breaking the law. But these are, but you know, there shouldn't be a death penalty.
it seems to me that the recommendation of the stop signs, and I'm wondering if we could paint arrows in the bicycle lanes of direction. I see that in a lot of bicycle lanes, of their arrows pointing which direction.
That would be a good way to convey that people are on the wrong side.
Yeah.
Maybe some simple things like that, just that we could do right away.
And I think, you know, you did, or Public Works did clean the path, you know, within a week or 2 after the presentation in March, and it made a big improvement. It's starting to grow back again though, so maybe you could have it on your periodic maintenance criteria.
Do you know whether it affected behavior in terms of usage of that path?
I saw more, because I ride every day, I ride that path both ways. Well, I don't ride now in the afternoon because I'm on the other side of the street, but you know, I see the kids. And when I'm coming in the morning, you know, like some of the high school kids are riding against the traffic because they're headed, you know, from north to the south. And I'm usually calling out to anybody I pass, even if I'm on the other side of the street, you're going the wrong way. And, or if we're at a stoplight, you know, at the Menlo Atherton High School, I'll talk with a bicyclist, you know, about the law, and they'll say, really? And I said, yeah. So, I don't know, maybe an article in the newspaper or something, or maybe having a...
Yeah, well, I think the arrows and some signage would
Yeah.
help. And Gordon, is it correct that Public Works can do that stuff without, or do we need to have a vote or anything?
The council would have to authorize the stop signs, because that's a regulatory device. The guide arrows, no. One other thing I should mention, and I'm not sure how many people know about it, there's a gate in Holbrook Palmer Park that allows people to go through. You have to you have to pay a deposit to get the key, and then there's an annual fee. But when I just to check it out last week, I used it when I was bicycling from the train station here and back, and it allowed me to stay off of El Camino and off of Middlefield. But, you know, then you can use Encinal to go east and
Well,
west.
that's north of where everybody is living in this case. You're heading south
Yeah.
and turning into Lindenwood Community, or even going past Middle
Well,
Atherton
and
High
of course, it
School.
means going out of the way, but
Yeah,
The other thing, obviously, we are, because of the bike master plan, we are going to be recommending installation of signing and striping to indicate more bicycle paths through town, where they're what are called class 3 on road. So I'm not sure how much that's gonna help, but now that we have we have the plan, it'll go to council for adoption after CEQA, and then we have funding proposed, subject to council approval, for implementation. The whole plan is, you may remember, was $12 million. We don't have $12 million proposed in the next 5 years.
The whole plan includes what?
Well, about half of that was actually putting a bike lane on El Camino Real.
Ah.
But excluding El Camino Real, it's still $6 million worth of work.
So if, is there anything the committee can do to help in this?
I would guess the committee, since it's old business, could recommend to council to move that recommendation of the stop signs.
Right.
And if you want to add the warning bell, light, whatever, that, I don't know that's not a council action. We'd have to look and make sure that we can do that, and it's an approved device. But
And the
the
striping
signs
is-
would be a council action, and the sign, and the stripes or the arrows would not be, that can be done
So why don't,
without council action.
can I make a motion?
It's all yours.
I move that we recommend to the council that they accept the, what are you, the
City
recommendation,
engineer.
the recommendations of Public Works to put up signage for bicycles at, let's start at the Linden Gate. And we would add to that there be directional arrows in the bike lanes along Middlefield. And that we recommended to the council that they move ahead with that.
Perfect.
So second? Second. Any discussion? Oh,
When would this occur?
when's the next council meeting?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
And then after that, if they would approve it, then how long for implementation? Usually.
Well, this doesn't really require much money, I don't think, so.
That would be something that would go to Public Works, and they would be the ones, one, they'd have to get the signs, and they'd have to get somebody to do the striping.
So, it'd be probably to have some people from the public at the council meeting
Yeah,
to encourage that.
When is the council meeting?
next Wednesday,
Wednesday.
if it gets on the agenda, so you have to get it on the agenda. That would be Gordon working hard to do that.
Okay, yes.
I was just wondering, is there any way either the council or the police, whatever, could ask all the schools in Atherton to address rules of the road for bicyclists? Go over a list or something, or send out flyers or assemblies or something on,
We actually, the police department used to be able to do, we used to do more outreach with the schools, and I know that the chief's been working with the schools, and they have public relations people to try to get back to some of these bicycle courses and so on and so forth, and I know the chief's working on it.
And that's a
So-
great idea,
Yeah.
because it's for more reasons than this intersection.
Yeah, we used to do bike safety classes, but budgets unfortunately got us all. And Gordon, I want to say that the work on the center island and ECR really helps the visibility. I don't know if everybody's noticed, but they really cut the foliage back in the center island. And I know that Selby Lane was on there, and I said something one day to somebody, I said, and they go, they're trimming it. Well, trimming it was really, almost made it look like a whole new island, so it really has increased the visibility in all directions, so thank MCE.
Good.
I don't think we ever voted.
You
gotta get a second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, Carrie can't vote.
Sorry, I'm watching.
Okay, and the grant application, do you want to talk about that?
Yes. The consultant has been communicating with me, and he's looking at a couple of possibilities. he's not very optimistic, having looked at the data, that we're gonna be very competitive in this first round, which is due, I think in July. No, actually, no, I think it's due in May. But Mike met with him on Monday to discuss that.
Could you explain what
Okay.
pedestrian means?
We hired a consultant, the same consultant who did the bicycle and pedestrian master plan, to help us prepare grant applications. He's looking at what might be successful in terms of being able to implement any pieces of that master plan. I think the first application for state funding is due kind of the end of May. Then there's another application process which has more flexibility that is due in July. Having looked at it, he thinks, and I'm going to be talking with him next week, but he thinks it's more likely we'd fare better with the application because of the criteria for the funding in July. But anyway, I will be talking with him next week. He hasn't completed his work. I just got a message from him on Monday. So by next week, I should have a better idea and obviously be able to report to the committee, at your next meeting. Might even be able to, at that point, we might have actually submitted the grant, but I cannot tell you which project he said, this one's gonna fly or not, but I'm working with them on that.
Okay. Is there any other items, questions? If not, we'll move on to the police traffic unit report.
You may recall that there's in the city manager's report, there's a plan to fix or improve the intersection of Atherton Avenue and El Camino Real, which I thought was a wonderful idea. I was happy to read it there, but surprised there was no discussion here, and I was wondering if we can get an update on that.
I would do that under Public Works updates,
Oh,
since
great.
it's not a matter of old business.
Sure.
Okay,
I have
on to
that.
Public Works updates.
Oh, did you not want the?
No, it actually is, oh, no, it's after the police unit, okay. Police,
Mr. Chairman, this is a good opportunity for me to comment on a couple of things. I think the discussions tonight and in the past Transportation Committee meetings shows the complexity and the breadth of some of the traffic issues. I mean, we just touched on 3 of them tonight here, and I could probably cite, and Anthony probably could cite more, of at least a dozen more, and they really highlight what the mayor was trying to get to, is that these are complex issues, there's many of them, there's a finite number of dollars to address them, and a finite number of staff as well. One of the things I was hoping that Jack would be around, I think he left, but Jack made a comment which, with all due regard to his effort in this, the police don't look at it as an uncomfortable part of our job. Traffic enforcement is not an hors d'oeuvre. It is the meat and potatoes of a lot of what we do in Atherton. And we've probably made about 780 traffic stops in the last couple of months. Probably 200-300 of those were for speeding. We've worked, just in the last couple of months, we've worked Fair Oaks. But the fact of the matter is, there's traffic challenges all over the town. And with 9 schools and the population during the week swelling to double, when briefing finishes in the morning, our folks go right out and work with the schools and try to deal with some of the kids on bikes and stuff, but it's really challenging. And a lot of it are engineering issues. Some of them are education, which we work with the schools, even with our short staffing. We have an annual school meeting before school starts in session, and we meet with all the administrators, and one of the big pieces is traffic safety. Kids on bikes, talking to our kids. And some of you have probably seen the vehicle code lesson plan that Sergeant Copeland puts out in the Athertonian, and the last one happened to be on bicycle safety. And so it really is going to take a full-fledged effort on the education piece. It's got to be a lot of parents involved in that, as well as the school faculty. We have in the past, like the mayor said, done bicycle rodeos. They're resource intensive and they take a lot of time. And we also have to find time within the school curriculum to put that on, because they're under the gun to maximize the time of the kids in class and quite frankly, there's not time necessarily set aside for bicycle rodeos. So those are challenges. And Sandy, thanks for shedding a light on this, and we're very concerned about it. And one of the things I wanted to say, I support trying some different things, and what Gordon suggested is a good stopgap measure to try it. The Transportation Committee should be aware that those signs would probably not be enforceable with a citation. Certainly could, try to influence the kids to stop their bikes, but I think we ought to try some different things and maybe see what works out there. But it is, you have to understand there's traffic issues and challenges all over the town of Atherton, whether it's Selby Lane, ECR, or the roundabout area that Gary Lauder is very adamant about looking into.
Enthusiastic.
Yeah. Enthusiastic, and as well as Fair Oaks, Middlefield, Encinal. It just goes on and on and on. And but I think that if we can systematically look at this, I think the master plan on pedestrian and bike safety is a good step in the right direction. And by the way, when we get calls at the police department about Fair Oaks, we immediately plug that into our system, and we assign officers to go out there and work it. But again, we have finite resources, and so I'm going to have Sergeant Kokler talk about the actual 2 monthly reports that are in the police section, as he put a lot of the statistics together.
Right, for the month of March, we had one traffic complaint about speeding vehicles on James Avenue during the commute and after Menlo Atherton and Laurel School ended classes for the day. Spent 77 minutes in the area and there were no violations. One arrest was made for driving under the influence during March. We did 4 truck stop details in March for a total of 247 minutes. There were 9 deliveries in the town, 10 warning citations were issued, 1 verbal warning was issued, and 5 citations were issued. Both Officer Marks and Officer Boyle are now assigned to patrol, but they're riding their motorcycles during the day, so they're both out on motorcycles. We had 7 collisions. 1 involved injuries, 1 was a hit and run, and none were caused by anybody who was driving under the influence of alcohol. And we made a total of 371 traffic stops during the month of March. For April, we had 1 traffic complaint regarding speeding vehicles on El Camino. We were only able to spend 14 minutes in the area, but we did issue 1 citation. There were 3 arrests made for driving under the influence in April, and none of these arrests were from traffic collisions. We did 3 truck stop details for a total of 168 minutes. There were 18 deliveries in town, 10 warning citations were issued, 2 verbal warnings were issued, and 1 citation was issued. Again, Officer Marks and Officer Boyle were both assigned to patrol but riding their motorcycles for their shift. We had 7 traffic collisions, 1 involved injuries, 3 were hit and runs, and none were caused by anybody who was driving under the influence. And we made 390 traffic stops during the month of April.
Any questions or?
Can I ask one? Anthony, can you expand a little bit more? I know that you heard John say, we were talking about trucks going on Fair Oaks. You say truck stop and truck route enforcement. Can you just tell us, do we move on that? Is there one location that trucks are supposed to be going that we sit and?
So the truck stop in here is done on southbound Middlefield at Watkins, right there in the pull-off. And what we do is we go out there in the morning usually, and we stop all the trucks that we believe to be under 3 tons and over 3 tons, and we make contact with the driver to make sure that they've got a delivery or a pickup within the town of Atherton. If they don't have a pickup or delivery in Atherton and they've never been stopped before, then we'll give them a warning. If they have been stopped before, then they'll get a citation for the violation of the Muni Code ordinance. What we're finding is a lot of drivers are actually making deliveries in town. But what we've also found is that some of the drivers of these big trucks don't have driver's licenses. So some of the citations that have been issued to the drivers for being unlicensed drivers or driving with a suspended driver's license.
One other comment in this area too, for instance, if we have a company like Safeway, we had some issues with their truck. not only did we contact the driver, but we contacted the corporate headquarters directly from our office and let them know that they need to do something about it. And so that's another avenue to address some of these problems.
Going to that, just the policy is you give a warning if the driver hasn't been in Atherton before, hasn't been in violation in Atherton before. Is that
Correct.
Have you thought about going to the company so that if it is Safeway, you're imputing the knowledge to all their employees?
Actually, I did make that phone call to Safeway. We had a problem with the Safeway truck coming through, and I called their corporate office and talked to their director of transportation. And he was going to not only speak with his driver, but he was also going to speak with all of the drivers to make sure that they follow the truck routes, not only within Atherton, but within any city that they go to. And Safeway was really glad that we called them because, as their director told me, they don't like their trucks setting a bad image for traffic or causing traffic backups when they're somewhere that they're not supposed to be.
Right, I understand. My question though is I understand the policy, if the driver hasn't violated before, you give them a warning.
Right.
Have we given consideration to sort of stepping that up for companies and applying that to a company so that if Safeway is briefing their drivers not to do it, the argument is any driver who's in there is actually on notice that he's doing it, therefore he shouldn't get a warning, he should get an actual ticket.
We usually don't contact the actual company if we're just doing a truck stop. If it's like a major violation or a major safety issue, then yes, we will. But a lot of these trucks are gardeners,
Understood.
or a lot of them are even the rental trucks with Penske or U-Haul or something glued to the side of them. Construction trucks, shredding trucks, and a lot of the times the drivers are just unaware of the ordinance, or they get on Marsh Road and by the time they see the signs, it's too late to turn around.
Yeah.
So I think our opinion is it's better to speak with the driver than to bring it up to his company and cause more problems for the driver when it's an honest mistake.
No, understood. I guess my point's a little different. It seems to me we could impute the knowledge of the company to every one of the drivers, and I think that would be pretty effective. I used to tell you that's what other federal enforcement agencies do with other companies.
Basically, you're giving the company
The warning once.
the warning, and you better make sure all your drivers have a license. And if you don't, next time they come into town, you get tickets. I think
That's what I'm saying.
I'd just like to mention that I've been on this board many years, and under previous chiefs and traffic enforcers, the two people on the council, on the board would be two council members would be on here. And for years, they would try to get the officers to tag more speeders. We'd get the reports a month, 20 a month for the whole of Atherton Police Department, 25. The former mayors would push this. And I'd just like to, everybody in the room, if they don't know, in the months of March, these officers gave 103 speeding tickets and only 47 warnings, which is great. In the month of April, they gave 107 speeding citations and only 26 warnings. This is triple or more than used to be done under different chiefs and different traffic control officers. So I'd really like to commend you guys.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Excellent
absolutely.
job.
Thank you.
And if we had more motors, we'd be busier.
Any other comments, questions?
Is it appropriate for public comment?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure this is valid, but someone told me, and it's been so long, I don't remember who it was, that most of the traffic on Marsh Road that goes on Middlefield is to the hospital at Stanford. And I just found that unbelievable. And I just wonder whether there's some way you can do a survey of who's driving where. And if it is a hospital, I'm not sure that's Atherton's responsibility to take care of the hospital. I don't know whether we have a choice, but, you know, it's just the thought that came to me, I've never mentioned it.
All in favor of putting in fast track?
Toll road.
That'll pay for our public works project.
A nice bike lane.
I was gonna say Google could probably answer that.
Yes.
So, as soon as the freight train passes, that we could have the final item.
I'll try to speak up.
Please.
There are, let me first talk about the item that committee member Lauder brought up. And I have a drawing. Drawing's not for anything for free. Then we got, in fact, there's two drawings here, so we'll just pass them as a set. We'll talk about first the top one first, and then the second one. All right.
Thanks for being
Good. All right. Excellent. I'll share one with my colleagues here, and one for the public. Thank you. The first drawing is the intersection of Atherton and El Camino Real, and the complaint came in that there was insufficient queuing distance for vehicles able to make the right-hand turn. Once you have more than a couple of cars either going straight or left, and much of the traffic there does go straight onto Fair Oaks, which may not be pleasant for the people in Fair Oaks, but nevertheless, then it's frustrating for the drivers hoping to make what's called a free right turn. Free meaning they don't have to, they have to stop for the signal, but they can turn right on red. So we were asked to try and come up with a solution, and after working the geometry back and forth, we do have a way of widening slightly in there. I have not heard back yet from the city manager regarding whether he wants us to proceed with it or not. If we were to do so, we would talk to the two property owners adjacent. Even though the city has control over the right-of-way, we'd still, as a courtesy, want to make sure that both the property owner north and south of the intersection was aware of it. But we can, as you see, there's very little widening that would have to be done on the one side. There are some bollards right in front of that fence on the north side, which suggests to me that that property owner has experienced errant vehicles. I think the mayor was talking about